You're listening to Galaxy of Film.
Alright, and welcome back to the Brain-Ups of Galaxy of Film. I'm, of course, your host, Max. And this week, we have a very special episode. We're, of course, joined here by Greg Sestero. How are you doing?
Good. Good to see you again.
Of course, good to see you as well. We've met a couple times last year, actually. First at the Cameo Art House in Fayetteville, which is where we premiered my newest film, Goonies and Agony, as well.
I like it down there. It's a good theater.
Yeah, it's where I'm from, actually, too. Yeah, Fayetteville's a wonderful area. And then also at the Alma Draft House.
That's right.
Another great place, too. But yeah, here we are talking about Miracle Valley and Best Friends, two of your films this week, which is a lot of fun. So I'm glad to get you on here this week, man.
Yeah.
By all means. But we're not alone, thankfully. We do have two other people with us. First up, I want to go ahead and introduce, he's been here for God knows how many times at this point. Like since what, episode like 20?
34 times, I think.
34 times? But you're here in the flesh finally, which is crazy. Because not only is this the first in-person podcast we've done with Galaxy of Film, but we finally get you in here finally, like together with me.
In flesh, at the beautiful Independent Picture House
Yeah.
in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yes, by all means. But we got...
Which is where I'm headquartered. So yeah, glad to be back doing this in person for the first time. It's an honor to be here with Greg.
Yeah, thank
Talk
you.
about these films.
Of course, it's none other than Brian from Drink the Movies. This is that introduction got a little backwards. But yeah, we also have Naima Saeed as well. How are you doing?
Good to be back, as always.
Of course. And you have produced, of course, Goonies and Agony, and also Girl in Bed #1 in Novex.
What I'll be known for in the future.
Yes, according to IMDb.
It's an iconic role.
It's the
Every role is iconic. It just depends what you do with it.
I call it my Kate Blanchett moment.
Oh yeah? Love that. And you were here a few weeks ago talking Garfield with us right before the film's release for Goonies and Agony. Of course, had a little reunion with Chris Sorrentino, which was fun.
Oh, it's so good seeing Chris again. Chris is such a hoot. Oh.
And then we had Brian over here as well with Brendan Wayne for The Mandalorian, or from The Mandalorian, talking some Empire Strikes Back, which is a good time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, here we are talking a little bit about your films this week though, Greg. Obviously, you're in a little film called The Room, which I think everyone knows about at this point. You wrote The Disaster Artist, which was then adapted for the A24 film. And of course, also directed Miracle Valley, and then starred in Best Friends Volume 1 and 2 with Tommy as well. So real quick, tell us a little bit about Miracle Valley if you don't mind, because this was your directorial debut.
Yeah, so when we made Best Friends, it was sort of my first full-on film project. Mm-hmm. Wrote it, produced it, lived it. Making movies. That spirit of filmmaking, you get together with a small group of buddies and you go out there and you take on this gargantuan challenge of making a watchable film.
Yeah.
Because everyone starts out with the same goal, which you really believe in what you're making. And so we started making Best Friends 2 or 3 weeks in. I could really feel like when we were getting these scenes with Tommy, it was really genuine. When I wrote the script of Best Friends in his voice.
Okay.
So we rehearsed, I wanted people to see that movie and think, is that Daniel Day-Lewis in costume?
Love that.
So yeah, I don't know if we got quite to that level, but it was just that contagious feeling of just that excitement. And when you're making a movie and you're in the thick of it and you're really enjoying the process, you think to yourself, man, when I'm not making movies, I'm wasting my time. Because there's so much when you're in it and you're doing 18-hour days and you get to 5 to 7 days, you're like, wow, we've created something. What am I doing all this other time when I'm not making a movie? You realize how valuable time is. So we worked really hard on Best Friends. We just, again, went out and made it. It was one of those things, there was no studio. It was like, hey, I have this itch to make a movie. I've seen these television shows like Fargo and Breaking Bad, and I thought, I want to go out and do that. I want to go out and create something. And I was on the set of The Disaster Artist a lot. So I had a lot of experience watching these great filmmakers, great actors prepare. And so it was like, I had the bug that I wanted to make something. So we went out, we made Best Friends, worked really hard on it, did a world tour. Lionsgate picked it up and released it. And very, very surreal. So I realized, oh, this is what I want to spend my time doing. And it wasn't necessarily just acting. It was I really loved writing and creating stories because when you make a film, as a director, or producer, or writer, you care about every character equally. You're not thinking, oh, I want to make sure I'm in this scene and it's all about me. You're like thinking, hey, I want everybody to shine. It was a nice shift from just focusing on yourself being an actor. So after Best Friends, after The Disaster Artist, I thought I want to try something totally different. I want to go into genre filmmaking. I love horror movies. At the time, people were giving a lot of credit to horror films, a lot of attention. I thought people were open-minded. Let me try to go out and make something. Horror movies are really fun with a crowd, and the room audience does like to come out to the theater and does like to interact with movies. So I thought, I'm gonna study 70s horror and I'm gonna go out and make a totally different film. So I got a message over email from somebody I didn't know who, which is always a good start, who ran.
That's how we met, so.
That's actually how we met.
They had a ranch down in Arizona. And they said, I know you're interested in making a horror movie, but what was weird is I hadn't really talked about it yet. So how did this person know I wanted to make a horror film? It's bizarre. Got these amazing images, and I'm like, that's a great set for a cult desert thriller. So went down there, checked it out, and I was like, I got to go with it. So I went down there, just moved to the middle of nowhere in Arizona, in Patagonia. It's like a little mountain town in the middle of nowhere. So there's scorpions out there, there's coyotes running by your door, and I'm like, maybe this was a mistake, things got a little weird. But I did discover a real life cult that used to be down there. And so I researched it. And what was really cool about Miracle Valley is I started the idea and the project in May, and we finished it by the end of November. We're talking writing the script, casting it, finishing filming.
That's impressive. Okay, yeah.
So it was like nice to have a deadline of, we got to make this movie by this time. And on Best Friends, I'd worked with some really great people, really fun. I mean, when you're making a movie, you want a good team around, people that are good to be around. So a buddy of mine, Rick Edwards, he played the uncle in
Uncle Rick.
Yeah, Uncle Rick.
That makes so much sense.
And he's a longtime friend, and we just had so much fun. I was like, you know what? So he's going to be in Miracle Valley. He's going to play the priest. And we put the movie together, and I would just, every day I would watch like 5 to 10 minutes of my favorite horror films. And I'd say, why do I like this movie so much? Why is it rewatchable? What can I make to bring to the horror genre, to fans of the room that have supported us for so many years? What can I make to give them a new entree of something that they can hopefully enjoy? And I knew one of the formulas was I wanted to make a movie 90 minutes or less.
Okay.
I wanted to make something that 30 minutes an act, get in, give them a good time, and wrap it. Don't get too into building characters. I wanted it just to be a fun ride. So it was, again, it was one of those things where when you know you have that time, you make each day count. So lots of research, lots of table reads. And so Miracle Valley was really inspired by those 70s horror films.
That's awesome. If you wouldn't mind, just to get our listeners up to speed real quick too, because we do talk spoilers during Galaxy films, so just a disclaimer for all of you listeners, turn away now if you haven't watched, I guess, or you can come back to this afterwards. Go a little bit over plot points with us for Miracle Valley, if you wouldn't mind.
So yeah, Miracle Valley, it's inspired by a real life cult named Miracle Valley. It's about this bird photographer, nature photographer named David. He gets invited to go down to this small area to do to try to capture a photo of the gray hawk, the silver hawk, which is an elusive bird that's down there. And he's not the sweetest guy. He's very focused on getting a photo of this bird. And because one of the things down in that area I was living in, bird watching is a huge thing. Okay. And so I went on a few expeditions and studied that. So I got really into that. So I was trying to infuse local culture into the movie I was making. So he's invited down, and before you know it, he's quickly indoctrinated into this strange cult that surrounds this land unknowingly. And his girlfriend, who's gone through a lot of trauma, was kind of dragged through it. And she holds a special secret that the cult is after, but nobody knows that. It starts to just slowly unfold in that way.
Nice. And I'll go ahead and let you take the stage real quick with your question.
So I have one impromptu question, if you don't mind me asking. What is your favorite 70s horror film? As horror fanatics in this room right now, I had to ask the question.
I would probably say Halloween.
Great pick. That's mine as
First?
well.
Original?
First one, yeah. Because it was actually filmed in the small town in LA that I lived. In fact, the Michael Myers house is still there. I went to the Michael Myers house on Halloween night last year. And there was a guy dressed up there as Michael Myers, and he's sitting out front of the house with a knife and pacing, and he's there every night of October. He's like so dedicated. So I walk up, and he walks by and looks at me and stops. And he's like, "Oh, hi, Mark." And I just looked at him, and I'm like,
Oh my god.
just kind of shook my head.
That's
I was
awesome.
like, really? And then so we ended up acting out a scene where I'm sitting on Michael Myers' porch, and he's like, "I did not kill her, I did not," and throws the knife down, and he goes, "Oh, hi, Mark." It was totally bonkers. But Halloween was filmed there. Went to the bush where Michael Myers is. I lived right around the corner from the school. So
that's
I'd
cool.
say, I'd say Halloween. I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Hills Have Eyes. Hills Have Eyes was one that really like sticks with you. It was so disturbing.
That's awesome. And obviously you mentioned too, Brian, of course, we're from North Carolina. We've been in North Carolina, very vocal about supporting local film here in NC. Another cool thing about here too, there is like a replica of the Myers house here in North Carolina, where they do a lot of film screenings. I think they just call it the Myers house, funny enough.
Where's that located?
I was not that prepared.
Wait, that's the one where Michael like shows up and does intros and stuff?
I'm not too sure. No, it's just a replica of it, but.
We will find
Gotcha.
out.
But then I know they did some filming for Halloween Kills and Ends out here.
I think in there or in South Carolina, I think.
I had a friend who was
Yes.
in Halloween Kills.
Oh, really? Oh.
I got him on my podcast.
Oh, okay. We'll show
We'll
up.
talk, we'll
talk. You're up next, Brian.
Yeah, for sure. No, you mentioned going into genre filmmaking, into the horror genre. Are there other genres you'd like to pursue next? Potentially some sci-fi on the
Yes.
future?
So yeah, I mean, living in that ranch in the desert not only helped me make Miracle Valley, but it helped set up my next film, which is called Forbidden Sky. It's a UFO abduction movie. So I had this place to make the movie, this ranch. We made the movie. I went back to LA, and then all of a sudden, 3 months in, there's a pandemic happening. So I went back to the house I was living in the middle of nowhere, escaped LA, and I started editing Miracle Valley in the house we made it during COVID. It was so bizarre. And the people that were living nearby on the ranch thought Miracle Valley started COVID. It's a whole different story. So I ended up going to stay busy. I would research really weird things, listen to a lot of podcasts. I did look up a lot of backstory on D.B. Cooper
Oh.
and studied that a lot because people used to say that Tommy might be D.B. Cooper. So once I debunked that he wasn't D.B. Cooper, I ended up going on a UFO night tour in Sedona, which is an area of a vortex that has the most UFO activity supposedly.
Okay.
So I took this UFO night tour. It was totally insane. The stuff that he told us about. And then I went to Roswell. So I got the idea to make Forbidden Sky. So it's a UFO abduction movie. This was like during COVID, right? And then all of a sudden, so my mom was like, "So what movie are you gonna make now?" And I'm like, "I think I'm gonna make a UFO abduction movie." She's like, "When are you gonna make a good movie?" like a normal. And so anyway, all these reports start coming out. This was pre that, like when I was talking about making this UFO movie. And now all of a sudden she's like, "You better get busy making that UFO movie." So yeah, that's what I'm working on next is, again, some of those movies my favorite movies were Fire in the Sky,
Okay.
which is a really, really great movie about a real life abduction, and a movie called Galaxy Quest as well.
Oh, okay. We had someone who worked on Galaxy Quest on the podcast as well. It was Sandra Nelson, who was doing, I believe, special effects work on it. So that's pretty cool.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
Like they got Tom.
That's awesome. Speaking of Tommy as well, and kind of bringing it back to Best Friends for a second too, what kind of drew you into like work with Tommy again after so many years of working on The Room?
Yeah, we hadn't worked together in 15 years. I think it was seeing a rough cut of The Disaster Artist. It was really, I saw it with a test audience, kind of sat in the back, and I don't know, I saw the reaction the crowd had to the film. I'm like, I really feel like we should give it one more shot. Because I felt like with The Room, it was just such a chaotic experience and turned into something totally different. But I really felt like we never really, at least for me, I never really went all in and said, with The Room, I was sort of existing on Tommy's planet, doing what he was asking me to do. And I really thought Tommy is a very compelling performer on screen. He's got something really unique. And I saw that in the acting class, and it's just, again, The Room was its own thing. So I thought, let's try to pick up where we were then and really try to make something unique.
That's awesome. I'm glad you said that too, because that's one of the things I love looking at The Room, Disaster Artist, and Best Friends, like a trilogy almost. When we see the attempts to make the movie, the product that ended up coming from the attempts, of course, and then we get the backstory of like all the love and passion that went into it, both sides, and both making your dreams come true, and then we get to see trying at the full extent, your full effort coming out of Best Friends. I love that. I think it's a great trilogy.
No, and I think again there was no trying to be bad or trying to recapture The Room. It was just us making an LA noir film.
Yeah.
And it was invigorating in a lot of ways. We were going around these places in LA that we used to hang out years ago, and now we were trying to really dive in. And Best Friends is sort of inspired by a road trip Tommy and I took years ago.
Oh, okay.
In which he thought I was taking him up the California coast to try to kill him.
Okay.
Which wasn't the case, but there's a lot of jokes throughout the years that I really tried to hone in on and make this script mean something.
Okay, that's awesome. I think it's very true to your guys' characters, or true to yourselves as well too. There's a moment, and I think it's the reveal of Tommy being alive, or it just kind of pops up out of nowhere, which is wonderful on camera. And then seeing you guys kind of all dappered up in Vegas, and we just see still all the belts and the chains he's wearing. It's very in character. It feels like. I love it.
Oh, hi, Mark.
What's up, everybody? Tyler here. For Stream of the Week, I fired up the Prime and I put on a childhood classic, the 2004 SpongeBob SquarePants movie. This movie is near and dear to my heart. You want to know why? Because it is the first movie I ever saw in the theaters. I was 5 years old, I was in kindergarten, my dad had taken me. I even ran into another classmate while there. All the good SpongeBob specials have the classic mix of the animation and the live action pirates for the intro. That was hilarious when it started with SpongeBob. You know what he does really well? The misdirection humor. It cracked me up as a kid, and some of it was even funnier as an adult. It starts off right away with a pretty adult situation. SpongeBob did not get the promotion that he felt he deserved, and he got wasted at the bar, not the ice cream bar. It's kind of relatable as an adult if anyone's been through that situation. Plankton has an evil plan that comes the closest to working. It sends SpongeBob to some faraway places. Every point of the movie is iconic. The David Hasselhoff makes an appearance, and the end, the absolute best part of that movie, the Twisted Sister cover, I Wanna Rock. We all had that stuck in our heads for days, and I believe that introduced many of us at this age to Twisted Sister and that song to begin with. And I love rock music like that. That was really good for me. This movie hit it right. Every single place. It was funny, witty. It was just as funny as an adult, as a kid. And I think this was peak SpongeBob because I think the quality kind of dropped after this. Maybe I'm biased. I give this a Coruscant. I love y'all.
Do you want to talk about it?
I don't think anyone ever really wants to talk about it.
I just wanted to come home so I can fix things.
You want to talk about being alone, huh? He's had it pretty rough too, apparently.
How do you fix things? I mean, you're the one who's fucked it all up.
You gonna order another drink or not?
I'll take another. How am I supposed to get up from rock bottom?
The way I see it, it's not too late. No matter how much it hurts, keep moving.
Brian, I'll let you take the stage again.
But yeah, so that was really the question that I had was about the upcoming project, which is great to dive into science fiction. Are there other genres that you're drawn to, or even within Best Friends or Miracle Valley that you're directing your debut there? Were there other like genres you were pulling from, or things that you might like to explore in the future?
Yeah, I love to take weird real life experiences that I've gone through because I've gone to so many different places around the world, met so many people. I've always been someone who's very observant, and so like I said, I like to take weird experiences I've gone through and put them out into the world. And so a couple of things I'm working on right now besides Forbidden Sky, I'm working on. I wrote a script when I was 12 years old. It was a sequel to Home Alone that I set in Disney World. I wrote a role for myself, put it together, mailed it to John Hughes, and got a letter back. So this past year I've been revisiting that. I want to turn that into like a graphic novel or do something creative with that. Revisiting it I think would be really fun. So Home Alone, Lost in Disney World or whatever will be coming soon. And then also, I also went through a very, very bizarre evening in Istanbul, Turkey, that involved a very, very dangerous scam that still 14 years later is still terrifying to me. So I've also put some touches on trying to develop that as well. Okay. So you go through this crazy stuff, you may as well do something with it. It's therapeutic. Oh, in fact, on the set of The Disaster Artist, every day I'd go and watch these scenes be filmed in the exact spots that I experienced them. I remember sitting there at the end of the day. It was like therapy where it was sort of whitewashed and it was something entirely new.
It's a very therapeutic thing, especially like, being multifaceted as an artist, like writing things that you've experienced with trauma. It is truly beautiful once you actually do captivate it and put it out there, because there are other people that could also have experienced something very similar, or at least in a way where somebody else could relate to that type of story and find beauty in the realism, even in like the surrealism, the type of work that you're doing. But I think the type of work that you do, especially the chemistry that you and Tommy have, it's so niche. And I think, from a filmmaking, from an acting perspective, there isn't really anything like it out there. And I think it's so unique, the type of works that you do put out there, that I disagree with your mom a little bit. And I'm like, I think what you are doing is phenomenal. And I really hope that the work that you put out in the future is just as, you as the work that you guys have been doing, because I think that there is something out there, and there's a following, as you can see over there, of people that want to continue seeing that instead of what we traditionally see on the day-to-day. Sure. That was not my question. I wanted to say that, just I'm a fan, but I did want to ask. I wanted to ask, especially within both of your films, there's just very big contrast that you kind of see from the beginning of the film to towards the end of this very like serene daylight thing that you kind of start into, like your intro, and then this very gritty outro that you kind of get in between your films towards the end. Is there a reason that you kind of contrast your films that way? And have you ever tried contrasting it the other way, or are you playing around with type of storytelling that you'd like to say?
Yeah, I think writing The Disaster Artist, it taught me a lot about structure and story and making sure your audience is always engaged. So I kind of tried to do that with I was going to say The Room, but that's not the case. With Miracle Valley as well as Best Friends. I try to, again, when the audience comes in to see these films, I love when a movie has like that shocking twist or that moment. And that makes you want to kind of go back and rewatch it. And so and Hitchcock is somebody who does that so well. So I like to play with the audience. And a way to do that is how you structure the story.
Awesome.
I love that.
That's great. That's great. So obviously you kind of dove in what your next project's going to be like, and a couple other things you have going forward that you'd like to do too. Do you see yourself though continuing, wanting to do more directing in the future besides just a few projects, or mainly acting going?
I would say probably writing and producing. Okay. Again, I really like to write an engaging part. It's easier to do that, to write it for an actor that you know. Sure. So I do definitely enjoy acting, but I think writing, producing, directing is something that you can do in a much bigger way.
I gotcha. Okay. And
that kind of hits on something that I was curious about then. In your Valley, as your directorial debut, was there aspects of directing that you found particularly like interesting? Like, you know, working as an actor, that maybe you didn't realize that you're going to connect with that part of it quite so much. But when you're, you know, kind of fully in charge of it, were there aspects of that process that you were surprised that you enjoyed so much or were really drawn to?
Yeah, one of the things I always try to do with every scene that we were filming is you watch actors get comfortable. They know their lines. They know when the other actor is going to say their line. You lose that surprise element. So I feel like when we're doing a scene and it was just sort of, it wasn't connecting, I would pull one of the actors aside and say, hey, when this moment happens, say this, and see what they come back with. So there's a scene in Miracle Valley where, you know, the priest goes out and has to do something and she finds things she shouldn't have. And so he comes back in and I'm like, just go up to him and just keep saying, you're an asshole. And like, just surprise him. And she just kept saying it and he didn't know how to react.
Sure.
So that was something where I was like, you got, if she's really in character, he's gonna go with it. And so anyway, a lot of those takes were moments where we used that surprise element, where you just threw curveballs. And then there was another scene where the two actors were arguing about something and like the most prized possession was sitting there on the table and they're not even paying attention to it. So I told one of the actors, I was like, if they're not paying attention, go up and break it. Like, and so that's exactly what she did and it totally changed the scene. The problem was she ended up breaking and she got blood all over her, so we had to keep that continuity. So that part of the directing was really fun because we would all sit around a monitor together. So everyone knew what was coming, except for the actors. So we were all crowded on the monitor, like waiting. We were just burst into laughter. So obviously we couldn't do that with every scene, but they're like, hey, if the scene wasn't working, they're like, hey, do your trick again.
I got
so that made directing really fun. I also liked having people listen to the Halloween soundtrack a lot. We were shooting some of those scenes to give it that creepy touch. So I think, yeah, if just for your love of movies, remember why you were there making movies and don't get caught up too much in the business side of it, the professional side of it. Just remember the core of why you love movies. And when you're making a movie, keep that spirit.
Absolutely.
It's very beautiful, very inspirational. I loved your death scene in.
I wanted to kill myself off earlier, to be honest.
But I love that the thing you were most obsessed with is the thing.
Yeah, your art, you're killed by your, yeah.
If I may, is there something to other filmmakers or actors in the industry, a piece of advice that you'd give them, you know?
I think just get started. I think we overthink, are we ready? I need to take this class before I start, or I think I need to, you know, have my hair a certain way before I take a headshot. I think the biggest mistake we make is we think that we have time. And I remember my brother used to tell me when because I started out modeling and then I came back from living in Europe, I'm like, now I want to get into acting. He's like, well, why aren't you pursuing it now? I'm like, oh, because I got to get this training and I got to do this and I got to go to LA. He's like, no, you can start right now. What about starting a class in San Francisco? Why are you pushing this off? And he was so right, and I resisted it because I thought, oh no, I need to do it this way. But had I not listened to that, I would have never gone to the acting class. I would have never met Tommy. Everything would have changed. So I think just if you want to do something, don't wait for somebody to just go out and start pursuing it, whether it's shooting a bird like flying over. It's just start shooting and get that engagement going.
Thank you. That's what we had to do here as well, obviously, with our filmmaking careers too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, especially the last couple now. Yeah.
I've only been number 3 at first. I was not number 1 to start with.
But hey, you end up as number 1. That's all that matters. That's all that matters. But yeah, I think it's going to go ahead and wrap it up for this one, guys.
Right on.
Greg, thank you so much for coming on for this.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Where can listeners find you and find more information about Forbidden Sky coming out and more about the tours you're doing for the Rim?
Yeah, I try to post on my social media. It's just at Greg Sestero. And so I try to keep in touch with everybody.
Gotcha. Okay. And Brian, it's always a pleasure getting you on, like always. we'll get you back on again, of course. Kind of live here.
Time or two, yeah.
Where can our listeners find you in your podcast, sir?
Thank you so much. Thank you, Greg. Appreciate you taking some time out of your busy day to come and chat with us. If you want to connect with me, you can do that on my podcast. It's Straight to Movies. So After Movie is everywhere and wherever you're listening to this right now.
Awesome. And Naima, it's always a blast getting you on as well. Of course, we'll have you here, but behind the scenes stuff too, of course, and more on the podcast. Where can listeners find you?
You could find me on Instagram at _NAIMASAID, my name. You could find me on Actors Access. You can find me on Backstage. You can find me on IMDb Pro. You can cast me anytime you want. I'm here. I travel. And obviously, I have my own podcast, which I'm very behind on. I think Max kind of stole me into his podcast now. So you can find me on Galaxy of Film. And you can't get rid of me, Max. I'm kind of here now.
Yeah, you're kind of stuck with us.
Kind of stuck with you.
Today she's girl in chair number 1.
There you go. That to the credits. Absolutely.
Look at that. I got called princess earlier. Girl in chair number 1. I'm having such a blast. It's been such a pleasure meeting you, Greg. This has been great.
So thank you guys all for listening. Shout out yet again to the Independent Picture House here in Charlotte, North Carolina, of course, for having us here. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate all the hospitality too. Stay tuned for next week. Got another brand new special episode coming your way. Make sure to check out Goonies in Agony, my new short film, also produced by Naima here, of course. And you can go ahead and find that on our website, galaxyfilm.com, and on our YouTube channel, Galaxy Film Productions. But stay tuned. If you guys enjoy the show, hit subscribe. Be sure to leave us an iTunes and Spotify review if you enjoy the show. It truly helps out the show much more than you can imagine. And we'll talk to you guys next week. Bye, guys.
Just under 30.
Sweet.
Did it.
So glad. Well done, guys.
You know.